My name is Angela Barrow Wilkes. I am Carson's nanny, her daddy's mama.
Cool.
Clown school. Okay. I worked with a group of girls at church called Act Teens, which they don't have anymore. And it was a group, girls that learned about mission, and we went on mission trips. And a lot of times we'd go to the hospital in Jacksonville and to see the kids. And so the girls wanted to clown, to do clowning. And so I didn't have a clue what to do. So I went to this school at University of Georgia for a week and learned how to be a clown, learned how to do balloon animals and face painting and what some rules of clowning. And
What are some rules of clowning?
well, you never hand a child a balloon.
Why?
You give it to the parents, because if something happened to them, if the balloon popped or something, they put it in their mouth or something and got hurt, it would be your fault. But if you give it to the parents, then it's not your fault.
Oh my gosh.
I did, of course I did. I got an associate's degree at Georgia Military in Kings Bay. That's where I lived. And I got a bachelor's degree in Valdosta in early childhood. And I've got a master's degree from Torrey University in fundamentals of education.
Gotcha. Where was the first place you taught?
Germany.
Wow.
As soon as I graduated, I had seen a advertisement for this job, and I thought, I could never get it because I had been divorced. But I sent the email anyway, and God worked it out.
Wow.
That's how I got over to Germany.
That's so cool. What are some things about Germany that you miss, or just tell us about what it was like just to live there?
Well, I lived on the property of the church where the school was, and it was an English-speaking school because I didn't speak German. And so we lived on the property. I had a roommate, Bobby Joe, and we lived in the middle of a forest.
Wow.
And that was really neat. A lot of walking trails and things, and a lot of trees. Very, very nature.
So Bobby Joe was your roommate?
Bobby Joe was my roommate, yes.
Tell me more about Bobby Joe.
Bobby Joe, she was a year younger than my son David, than your daddy. Sweet young lady, very dedicated to God, and had a beautiful testimony. She was young, but we became best friends, and she stayed in Germany about 5 years, and then came back here.
What was y'all's age gap?
Our age gap, about 24 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. What is the most favorite place you've traveled? Because I know you go on a lot of cruises. And
Well,
over time.
my favorite place that I've ever gone to is I spent a week in Paris before I came home from Germany. And it was just wonderful to be there in that place. And one thing I loved was the Louvre. We went there. There was 5 of us that went, and they all wanted to see the Mona Lisa. Well, we saw that, and then they wanted to leave, and I told them, I'm not leaving. I'm staying right here. And so they went and did whatever they wanted to and came back that night and got me. And I walked all day. I stayed there all day by myself, and it was the most wonderful thing I've ever done. I mean, it was just, there's so much history there. It's just so many things to see. And I didn't see half of what was in the Louvre. I didn't see half of it. But it was,
so cool.
it was, it was.
First I thought you meant you stayed and stared at the Mona Lisa.
Oh, no. I walked around. I walked all day long, and
Sounds like a
I
dream.
just saw so many things. Like the statue of David was
Oh, yes.
just amazing, and so many statues and so much art. It was just
That's
amazing.
really cool. So growing up, you had sibling-wise Aunt Linda.
Mhm.
Did y'all have a brother?
Uncle Jerry, yeah, your Uncle Jerry. He passed away about 12 years ago.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
it's just y'all 3?
Just the 3 of us, and I was the baby.
Oh yeah, that's right. What are some do you have any funny stories of something you and Linda did, or I'm sure there's plenty.
Oh, goodness, Linda, we have the same birthday,
That's right.
but she's 3 years older than me, and she used to tell me that I was adopted, and it would hurt my feelings so bad. and I would go and cry to Mother, and Mother would say, "That's not true. You were not adopted." And then I would go tell Linda, "I told you I wasn't adopted. She just feels sorry for you." That's what she would tell me. She just feels sorry for you. That's not true.
That's so funny. What was your brother like?
My brother, he was 6 years older than me, and he was like my hero. He was always riding on a stick horse, because that's what they played back in those days, was cowboys and Indians. And he had a gun and holster, of course, was a cap gun, but he was very fast on the draw. His team always won. His group of cowboys always won.
Did you and Linda go to school together?
Uh,
Or what's y'all's? I forgot y'all's age.
we're 3 years apart. Yeah, and Jerry was 6 years older than me. Yes, we went to school, but most of the time she was like 3 grades ahead of me. You know,
Yeah. And then where did you grow up, like going to school?
in Fitzgerald, Georgia. Yeah.
And that's where she still lives?
Yes, she lives out in the country from Fitzgerald. She married Uncle Ronnie.
I was about to say, tell me how
He
Uncle
was-
Ronnie came into
Oh,
the picture.
how Uncle Ronnie. Well, Linda was a little sickly. She was always had trouble with lady things, you know. So I just grew up kind of taking care of her, you know, thinking that I had to look after her. But there were some boys that she dated that I didn't like, and there was one boy named Dallas Young.
Who's Alice Young?
Dallas Young.
Oh.
I did not like him from the minute I met him. First time he came to the house, and he came to pick Linda up one night, and I made him get off the porch. I wouldn't let him. I didn't want him to take her on a date. And anyway, she didn't date him much longer. But then I don't know how she met Ronnie, but I liked Ronnie as soon as I met him, and Mother and Daddy did too. We all liked Ronnie, and so she ended up marrying him. I was 16 when she got married. She was 19, right out of high school. She got married in September, and I was her maid of honor. And I remember standing up there with my little bouquet of flowers just shaking all over, and everybody could see my flowers shaking because I was so afraid to be in front of anybody.
What are some funny things that Ronnie did that he used to do? Like, he was a funny guy. Just, like, talk more about him. 'Cause we all
Ronnie, his name was Ronnie Jean Branham. He was the youngest of four. And he made me laugh from the very start. His parents, they were farmers. One of his brothers and Ronnie farmed together, and his daddy, until his daddy died. But some funny stuff Ronnie did. Lord have mercy. I can't think right this minute, Carson.
It's okay.
Well, one thing he did. I don't know if you want this on your podcast or not.
This isn't my podcast. This is for a project.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Ross isn't even gonna get well,
Okay.
actually,
Well, you can block this out if you want to. They had just gotten married, and we were out at their house, and they had like double doors, sliding doors that went out to the back, and in the back was a pasture with cows in it. And Ronnie says, "Angela, look." And this cow had lifted its tail, because I didn't know anything about cows, but he pooped. And it just tickled me to death. I mean, I thought it was so funny. But, he used to try to do anything he could to trick me. He tied rubber bands around the sprayer on the sink one time. Yes. And we were going somewhere. They were at our house. Linda and Ronnie was at our house. And he put rubber bands around the sprayer, and I went in there to wash my hands, and of course it got my shirt all wet. Well, I go change my shirt, and I come back, and I start washing my hands again. He wet me again. Anyway,
That's funny.
yeah.
Sometimes it feels like he was one of y'all's siblings. Just like all this stuff.
He was like a brother to me, more than a brother-in-law, yeah. Because when Jerry went off to the Navy, I was in 6th grade, I believe. He went off right after he graduated. And so he was gone. And then Ronnie came around. And, of course, we would see Jerry, but not very often, maybe a couple of times a year. But Ronnie was just always there. Anything I needed, anything, especially when I was a teenager. And my mother and daddy moved to California when I was in, I think it was 10th grade. And Linda was pregnant with Scott, and she didn't want me to go, and I didn't want to go. And so I stayed with her and Ronnie, lived with her and Ronnie for about a year until Mother and Daddy came back. And Ronnie was, anything that happened, he was right there to help me. You know, just a good person.
Why did they go to California?
I don't really know. Daddy wanted, his brother lived out there. He had a brother named Uncle Charlie. And he went out there and worked with Uncle Charlie for a while. But then they came back. I guess he thought, because I wasn't going to come out there and Mother wasn't going to make me, then they came back. But that's when they moved me to Dublin. And they moved me to Dublin in April of my junior year of high school.
And did you just live alone?
Did I live alone? I
Oh,
lived
no, you lived with
Linda and Ronnie, yeah. No, I didn't live alone. I've never lived alone until I moved out of the house, moved away from my husband. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. Let me think. You went zip lining. Where again?
In Honduras, Rodon, Honduras, we went in the jungle of the howling monkeys, and me and my cousin Jan, we were on a cruise, and I wanted to zip line down into this cave. And then you could, they had boats that you could paddle through the cave. But Jan didn't want to do that, which was fine, because what we did was so much more fun, I believe. We did 7 levels from tree to tree. They took us up in the back of a truck up on top of this mountain, and we walked out, and there was a platform built around the tree. And we just got on, they hooked us up in all this garb, you know, and just said, pick your feet up. I picked my feet up, and here I go. Flying through the jungle. It was amazing. Absolutely.
So, just in general, like, what other countries have you been to?
What countries have I been to?
I know there's
well,
a bunch, so it might be
Well,
hard.
we lived in Cuba for a while, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, when your daddy was in kindergarten and first grade there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Germany. I've been to England, France, and Scotland. Luxembourg, Belgium, Holland, France. That's about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Europe.
Yeah, well, it's that little area right there. I lived in Dusseldorf, Germany, and it's that area that's right, the northwest of Germany. That's where I would go.
Are there a lot of mountains over there?
Down in the south of Germany, not in the north part where I was. Hills, but not mountains.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What is, like, the best food that you've had?
In Germany?
Or just, like,
In anywhere?
place?
The best food. Gosh.
Or does it
Oh,
stick out?
no. Let me think what it's called. It's a schnitzel. In Carson, I can't come up with it right this second. But it was, schnitzel is like lamb that they beat, or steak that they beat thin, and then they fry it and they put a sauce on it.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one that they put this mushroom gravy over, and it was so good. I loved it. We always went to this restaurant called Cedric's, and that's where I would get it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, like, how was, because obviously you're a teacher, how
Yeah.
was, like, grade school different back when you were in school than it is now?
Oh, the kids' behavior was the main thing. Because kids, when I was growing up, I didn't get in trouble at school, because if I didn't do what I was supposed to, I knew what I'd get when I got home, because my parents would never question the teacher and say that it was the teacher's fault and not my fault. And now kids think they're entitled to things, and it's just a lot different.
That's true.
Yeah.
Where were you in your life when, like, technology came into the picture?
Well, I learned to type on a manual typewriter to music going. And we could type to the music, and that did help. But we didn't have numbers or letters, on the key, on the keys. There were no letters on the keys. And there was a big chart in the front of the room with the keyboard. And we'd have to look at that and learn them. I mean, we did, they wasn't there. Yeah.
That's so
And
fun.
the first, let's see, I was excuse me. The first time I used an electric typewriter was when I went to work for the government. I worked as civil service,
What's that?
uh, working for the federal government. It's called civil service.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, I was a federal employee.
Whoa.
But the they had an electric typewriter, which I had never used, and they set me down in front of it, and I didn't know how to return it. Well, because I was used to doing this to return the key thing. But all you had to do is mash a button, and that was the first electric typewriter I used. And that's where technology came in, I guess. I mean, so I was already married. David was born. He was probably in third or fourth grade when.
All of that without phones?
Yes.
Where were you in your life when
Phones came in.
like phones in general and then smartphones?
Okay. Now, I remember we would have a phone sometimes, and then we would move somewhere and not have a phone for a while. And I remember when they moved me from Fitzgerald to Dublin in my junior year, Daddy didn't get a phone. And I was so upset. But I think he felt bad. He finally got a phone. Because I needed to talk to Linda, my sister. Not to a boy, just to my sister.
Mm-hmm.
But smartphones, well, when did they come in? What, the last 10 years? Or something like that? Have they been here 10 years? I had a phone.
2003, like when I was born, is where like the iPhone started.
Okay, 2003. Yeah, that was right after I came back from Germany.
Okay.
I didn't have a phone to carry somewhere with me when I was in Germany. I didn't have that. We had a phone in the apartment we lived in. But I don't go anywhere without one now. I mean, it's like they've always been here, but they really haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I played outside all the time. We came in when the street lights came on, or when Daddy stood on the porch and whistled. It was time for supper. We knew Daddy's whistle, and we'd go home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's like a funny story of like Daddy as a kid?
My daddy?
Plenty, or my daddy.
Your daddy?
Yeah, or both.
Well,
like raising him.
The first one I think of is he talked all the time, and he didn't really get in trouble at school, but he always wanted to reach out and touch people around him. That's what his teacher told me. He was in fourth grade, I believe. And she sent me a book. We had talked about how no matter where she moved him, he was going to talk. And she even moved him up next to her desk, and he had her involved in conversation without the rest of the class. But we talked, and she gave me a book about the foods that we were feeding him. And we took him off of red food dye, white bread, no sugar cereal, things like that. And his behavior changed because it was affecting his red food dye does a number on kids,
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever?
Yeah.
Well, how were like you disciplined as a child?
How was I disciplined?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't take a whole lot of discipline because I had an older brother and an older sister, and I saw Daddy give Jerry a spanking, and I didn't want any of that, so I did what I was told. And one time I was little, and I remember we were out somewhere, and I don't remember what I did, but Daddy told me when I got home I was going to get a spanking, and what Daddy said he did, So anyway, Linda and Jerry took me when we got home and got me in bed, put me to bed, and so I never did get that spanking. Yeah, I don't remember my daddy spanking me. My sister says she remembers him spanking me once or twice, but I don't remember it. And maybe because I didn't want another one after the first one, I don't know. But I got them for my mama. Yeah, we used to dance around in a circle. She'd make us go pick her own switch, cut it off the branch or whatever, and if it wasn't big enough, she'd make us go get another one. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Did you like discipline my dad the same way, like with the switches?
I don't remember switching him. I spanked him with my hand or a paddle. I remember one time he was going to get a spanking, and I told him to go to his room, get ready, because I would make him lean over the bed and put his hands up. And he put books in his breeches. And when he turned his little hiney up there, I got so tickled. I don't think he ever got that spanking. But he was a mess.
This just came to my mind. Evie, did you ever teach her?
No, but I taught her sister and her brother.
What are some like students that you've really connected with that you are
Still in
connected
touch
now?
with? Yeah, I'm in touch with several of my students. Uh, Emma, which is Evie's older sister, she's the first one of those kids I taught. And I was very nervous because her mother taught right across the hall from me. And but she was such a sweet little girl, and she never got in trouble. But one day, she and two other girls were talking, and so I had to move their card. And Emma looked at me like she could not believe that I was making her move her card. You know, it was just unheard of. Miss Wilkes wasn't supposed to do that. But now she works for a doctor at LensCrafters, and she's the one that helped me get my glasses.
Oh,
Yeah, and I see them quite often. Yeah.
that's sweet.
Yeah.
Didn't you teach Miss Archer?
No, I kept Elizabeth. I taught with Miss Archer,
Okay, yeah, that's
but
right.
I kept Elizabeth for her because after I retired, I substituted for 2 years, and that last substitute I did was from February to the end of school, the week before school was out, and nobody ever checked on me. Never came in the room. The principal, vice principal, anybody ever came in there to see if I was doing what I was supposed to. But the first grade teacher had a baby, and so she took all the time she had built up, plus her 6 weeks.
Didn't you teach in her place?
I did. That's what I did. That was my substitute. Was that? But that wasn't Miss Archer. That was.
And wasn't I in that class?
I never taught you. I never taught Grayson either.
That's
Yeah, you were gone on up by the time I did that. Because you were at the middle school. Because once I retired, I started picking y'all up after school.
right.
Yeah, and you were already at Kennedy Road. Yeah. And I picked Grayson up at Jackson Road. But I told Katie, or Miss Archer, that I wasn't coming back, and she asked me if I would keep Elizabeth that year, so I did. And then I started working at Faith the next year.
Gotcha. So what's your like retirement story? Because I know you retired and then that didn't last long.
Well, no, I didn't like being retired. I needed to be. I know I was very, very depressed when all the other people went back to school, getting rooms ready and stuff like that. I wanted to be doing that, and I didn't like being retired.
So what'd you do after?
Well,
That's
I did the substituting for 2 years. Then I kept Elizabeth for a year. And I told Katie at the end of that year that I didn't want to do that. I needed to be out and be around people. So Laura, your mama, sent me a thing that was on Facebook about a job at Faith Christian Academy. And I went there, and they hired me. I taught first and second grade together there. And then for 2 years I taught first and second. Then the next 2 years I taught second, third, and fourth all in one room.
That's right, and that was at the
At the-
Second Baptist.
Yeah, Second Baptist in Griffin, yeah.
So how'd you get to Cross Point?
Cross Point, well, I knew I was going to have to leave Faith because the school was going down. And some things had happened, and I needed to be away from there. So what happened was I was looking for a new church, and I visited New Salem Baptist Church. And one of my old friends, Miss Velma Jones, when I went in, my friend Ann Wilson was with me, and she said, when y'all come back and come to Sunday school, I want you to go to my class. So we waited, it was another couple of weeks, and we went back for Sunday school and went in Miss Velma's class, and Stephanie Barnes was the teacher. And after Sunday school was over, Velma said, I want you to meet her. So I went up and taught with her, and by that Friday, I'd already had an interview and had signed a contract to go to Cross Point.
Aw.
Yeah, and that was a God thing that I wasn't expecting. He just opened the doors for me, and it's where I should be. And I would stay there. I'm not going to work next year full time, hopefully part time, but my health is not good enough to work full time. So
At least you get to do something.
yeah. And Amber, the principal there now, she's trying to figure out what we can do to keep me there. Yeah. So it's just a good place to work. The people are so kind and so thoughtful, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you have any kids right now that are like crazy but you love them?
Oh, I got 12 of them. I've got 12 kids, 6 boys and 6 girls, and they get along so well with each other. And it's just, to me, it's a joy to go to work. I love it. When I had to go to the hospital and couldn't go, I missed almost 2 weeks, and I couldn't stand it because I didn't know what was going on in that classroom.
Mhm.
But it was, yeah. I've got some characters though. Can I say names, or should I not? I've
You
got
could just say first names.
Okay. All right. I've got one little boy named Joseph that he has a hard time learning. He's got some learning difficulties, and it's hard to see him struggle. You know, when the rest of them get things so easy, and that breaks my heart. But I do everything I can for him. You know, and I was supposed to have a conference with his parents and our special needs person at the school before I got sick, and so it never happened. So it's got to happen when I go back next week to decide what to do. They'll do some testing and things like that, but anyway,
Gotcha.
he's a sweet boy, but he won't sit in his seat. He sits with his knees up, and I don't make him sit flat in his chair because he's more comfortable like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is kind of jumping around, but I know there's this picture in your house of you and a bunch of your friends like at the beach holding each other's legs. What was that trip about?
We have a cousin reunion. We used to do a cousin reunion every year in October, and that particular one was down in Florida. We had gone to my cousin Gail's house, and I think there was about 12 of us there. And my Aunt Shirley, we only have one aunt left, and Aunt Shirley had come from Pennsylvania. And we got somebody to take our picture, and somebody said, lift your legs, and so we're holding everybody's leg. Just being stupid, you know, crazy.
So, how many cousins were there total? Was there
Oh
12?
my gosh. Yeah, see, some of those cousins were like second cousins, and there might have even been a third in there for somebody. I had 2 nieces there, 3 nieces there. My sister daughter was there, and then my brother's 2 girls, 2 of his girls were there. My cousin Jan's daughter was there. We have a cousin that passed away a long time ago, Sonny. He was the oldest of all the cousins. One of his daughters was there. So you know it's like that.
Mhm.
But it's kind of slowed down now. People are getting older and they don't want to get together, or they can't get together. And anyway.
So, Aunt Shirley is your cousin.
No, Aunt Shirley is my aunt. She's my daddy's baby sister.
Okay.
And when when my cousin Sonny was born, he was born before my Aunt Shirley. Because my grandmother she had 4 kids, all within 2 years of each other.
Okay.
And then there was 8 years, and she had my Aunt Jeanette. And then another 8 years, and she had my Aunt Shirley. So my Aunt Frankie and my Aunt Ethel and my daddy were all born before my Aunt Shirley was. And she was 10 when I was born.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fun. Haven't
Yeah.
y'all done a bunch of stuff together, you and Aunt Shirley?
Yeah, she comes down and visits me and Jan mainly, me and my cousin Jan. Yeah, we'll go up there. She takes us to I can't think of the name of it. I'm sorry, Carson.
No, don't be sorry.
But it's this place. They do plays, and it's like a 180-degree play, and they have live animals and all, and they do Bible stories. And I've seen the story of David. I've seen Esther. I saw the one they call Jesus. And there's one, I think it's the story, I don't think it was Noah. It was Moses, the story of Moses. They're all done so well. And some of them they make movies out of, you know, with the live animals and all that. And it's amazing because you can just see everything going on, you know, around you. But
Yeah.
we do that.
This is something I also wanted to ask, and it's just like, I guess your testimony, like how did you like find out who Jesus was? Like, how is he like part of? How is he like your whole life now? I just want to hear all about that.
Oh, well, very simple. Very simple. I don't have a big, deep, turn your life around testimony. But I was born on Sunday morning, okay? And I was always brought up in church. I knew by the time I was 9 years old that I needed to be saved. I wanted Jesus to be the main part of my life.
What made you realize that?
Well, I guess being in Sunday school all the time and going to GAs and stuff like that, and just growing up with that influence and Bible study at home. I can remember taking my color book and crayons to WMU meetings and being underneath my mother's chair coloring, you know. I mean, it's always in church. But I knew that I had to give my life to Christ, and so and I was very, very shy. I mean, I wouldn't talk to anybody until I knew them really well. I'm not like I am now. I mean, you talk to anybody, but so Mother had the preacher come to the house and talk to me, and she sat on the couch, and I sat kind of hidden behind her, and he would say, "Put your head out," and I would do like this, and he would ask me a question. But anyway, so I accepted Christ there that day with him, and that was in 1958. Okay, it's been a long time ago. Then I knew I wanted to be baptized, and I had talked with Mother about that. But that Sunday morning, when I knew I had to go down, she and Daddy wouldn't look at me. They wouldn't tell me to go on. I had to decide that for myself. And for me, being so shy and just wanted to hide from everybody, that was a big step for me. And I can remember doing all of that, but I didn't remember when it was until my mother died, and I found my baptismal certificate in her cedar chest. And that's how I remember it's 1958, because of that. You know, but I do remember that, and that was very, very real. But then, you want me to tell another part of it? Okay. One thing that got me off track, I wanted to be, because I was raised with GAs and missions and all of that, I wanted to be a missionary. And I was 16, and we were at church. We had a revival, and this preacher would, at the end, when he did the invitation, he'd put on this black robe, and he would sweat so bad he had like a little hand towel, and he'd be wiping his head. Well, all of us teenagers were down there on the front row, or second row, and he came along and says, "Do you know you're saved? Do you know you're saved?" You like scared the mess out of me, you know? And what I said was, "I think so," instead of, "Yes, I am." And he said, "If you think so, you're not. You go down." Yes. And I went down, and Mother wasn't there for some reason that night.
What do you mean you went down?
I went down to the front, and the preacher prayed with me, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But I went home and told Mother that I got saved, and she said, "But I thought you already were." And I said, "Well, I guess I wasn't." They told me. So that 16 started this thing where I didn't know if I was saved or not. And it went all through those latter teenage years, and even marrying David Sr. and all that. And I was pregnant with David, and he was out at sea. He was in the Navy. He was out at sea. And I couldn't handle it anymore. I just could not keep going, not knowing, because see, I would ask Jesus to come into my heart over and over and over. But then Satan would put those lies in my head that you're not really saved. Look what you just did. You're not saved. So I had gone to visit David's parents in Dublin, and went to church, and his name was Pastor Hollis. I'll never forget him. And I couldn't hold it back. I went down and told him I didn't know if I was saved, and I needed to know. And so he asked me to stay after church, and he would take me to their house, you know. And he sat and talked to me, and he wanted me to go through everything that had happened, and I told him all of everything that's happened. And he said that he couldn't say if I was saved or not, that I had to decide that on my own. But he told me to start with the book of John and just read and read and read. He said I would tell any new Christian to start with the book of John. And then that, where you were saved at 9 years old or 16, will have to be your own decision, you know, you and God. And so that's kind of where I really, really started to grow.
Yeah, how did you like get over that fear?
Well, it took a while. It wasn't something that happened instantly. It was It took a while, quite a few years, to where I knew and didn't have any doubt. Because Satan can kill you with doubt, I'm telling you. And to me, it's like he changed the path of my life through that fear, through that one incident there at that church. And nobody in that church ever questioned me or canceled me. And Mother never did either. All it was I thought you were already saved. And I said, well, I guess I wasn't. And so that's why I like that you've grown up with people that have mentored you and talked to you and made sure you were in the Word and you were doing what you were supposed to. And I didn't have that as a teen. I had a good youth leader, but he didn't do that. His name was Jesse Wynn, and I just adored him. He was a very, very good person, but he didn't question me on my salvation. Nobody did. And so because of that, I didn't know, and it was just didn't work.
How have you seen, like, I know you're like retired now and like in a different season of life, obviously, than you were then. How is like your relationship with your personal relationship with God still like part of your everyday? Like, I don't know how. Like, what is just like your personal relationship?
Oh, now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine life without him. I can't imagine doing anything without God and without knowing that it's what he wants me to do, or believing that it's what he wants me to do. I can't imagine getting to this stage. I mean, I'm 75, and I can't imagine being late in life and not having God, not having the assurance that I'm going to heaven and the assurance that everything's all right. It is well with my soul. I can't. I don't know how to describe what it is, but I just can't imagine life without it.
Yeah.
You
So I
know.
know you said you were struggling with that doubt when you were pregnant with Daddy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I was pregnant with your daddy when I went and talked to Pastor Hollis. Yes, yes. Yeah.
How did you see like my dad come to find out who like Jesus was, or did you get to see that in his childhood, or did that happen?
Well, he accepted Christ when we were down in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and he was in first grade. And then he came home from the Navy one time and had gone and talked with our pastor, and I didn't know that he had done that, and he had rededicated his life to God at as an older teenager, maybe even 20 years old by then. I'm not sure how old he was, but he was already in the Navy, and he was rebaptized. So I did see that. His first baptism. It was in the Caribbean Sea,
That's
that
cool.
down in, because they didn't have a baptistry in the chapel on Guantanamo Bay. They would take him out in the ocean and baptize him. Yeah,
Dang. That's really cool.
yeah.
Um, did you ever go on any mission trips?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you did.
With the ACT teens, we did 7 mission trips through the Home Mission Board, um, and the girls that I worked with had to do a lot of study, and me too. And we had to turn these papers in, and we'd send them to the WU office, and they would grade them, basically. And if you didn't do as well as they thought, they would send them back. You'd have to do it over. And I had one ACT teen one time. Her name was Jamie. She brings me this page. Whatever it was they were working on had to be 3 or 4 pages long, handwritten. And it's in these big, big letters. And I told her no, I wasn't accepting it. And she got mad and was going to go cry to her mom. And I just told her mom, I'm not accepting something like that. Look at that. When the rest of them had worked so hard and she just throws something on paper. But she got it. She got it done, and she went with us. Yeah.
I know there's also a picture of like the little black child, the girl on your
Oh,
Who's
yeah.
that?
Mabel. I'm no longer supporting her because she's grown and out on her own. Her name was Mabel, and I got her through Compassion when I was in Germany, and supported her from the time she was about 3 years old until she outgrew the program. Yeah. Anyways, and she would write me letters, and I'd write her letters, and of course, they go through the compassion office and are translated into their language, and that was a good thing to do. I enjoyed doing
Yeah.
that.
Was she the only child you ever had?
Yes, yes, yeah.
And how long did that?
Did that last let's see, about 20 years. About 20 years because I had her in Germany and I've been back. So I haven't had her for about 2 years now. And she would be about 25. That's what I'm thinking.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you collect magnets. I'm just like
I
visualizing the fridge
do.
now.
I do. I collect a magnet. I try to collect one from everywhere I travel to. So I've got a refrigerator full of them.
Have you ever like had a hard time getting one, but you were so determined to get one?
Yes. In fact, I just bought one this past weekend. I had one from Myrtle Beach, but the magnet broke off of it. It was like a shell that stuck out and had Myrtle Beach written on it. And anyways, I was in a store and I found a little heart that was flat, that was pretty with Myrtle Beach on it. So I got that.
Gotcha. Um, John Wayne.
No.
How did you start liking him?
How did I start? Well, I've always been a cowboy and Indian person. I always watched westerns. Used to watch Roy Rogers and Dale Evans and Gene Autry and Cisco Kid, people that you don't know anything about. But and John Wayne was just bigger than life, and he has to be your hero. He has to be mine. And I have my friend that I told you has cancer. She is the one that brought me a life-size John Wayne, and it's still in my room.
And
And-
have a calendar of him and a clock.
Yeah, I've got a whole wall full of John Wayne. But the thing about it, the only thing on that wall that I've bought is my puzzle I did of John Wayne, and a little saying that I like that says, "Courage is being scared to death, but you saddle up anyway." I bought a little thing like that, and everybody, other people give me stuff, that's John Wayne. So I got a wall full of John Wayne. Yeah, I didn't buy the clock.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
What was the orange cat that you had? Did you have an orange cat?
Tiger. We had Tiger and LC. LC stood for Little Cheese
Why little cheese?
because your daddy and your aunt Stephanie liked cheese, I guess. I don't know. That's what they named them, LC and Tiger. And we thought they were boys when we got them until I walked out one morning and I said, "David, look at LC." She was up on top of the car. And I said, "She's getting so fat." And I felt of her tummy and there were little bumps, big bumps. And we had 11 kittens at one time because both of them had kittens within about 2 or 3 days. Yeah.
Do you have any like holiday traditions that you did growing up, like Christmas or Thanksgiving with your family?
Well, we were always with my mother's family. My mother only had one brother, my Uncle Bython, that died last October. He was 90 when he died. He lived a long time. But we were always with them and my cousins, Marcia and Jeff. Those were the only 2 cousins on my mother's side. But on my daddy's side, we had a pile of cousins because there were so many kids, But traditions,
Or like recipes for food?
always, yeah. We called it raisin and nut cake. It was like a fruit cake, but all it had in it was raisins and pecans. In the cake mix. And Mother made them every year. And we just loved the raisin and nut cakes. And I remember she sent one to Jerry when he was in the Navy. And Jerry said that when he opened it, all he did was cut him a big wedge out of it and set it down and let the other guys have it.
What stuff do you cook now that we love that like you got from someone else?
From someone else. Well, dumplings. You love the dumplings. And I would have made some today, but I didn't have enough juice, enough stock, chicken stock.
Where'd you get that recipe from?
The dumplings? Just watching Mother and Linda, And Linda's the one that put me onto the frozen dumplings. So we don't have to make them up and roll them out. That was a big mess, but we loved them. And we thought my grandmother was the one that made them the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was your grandma like? What was her name on it?
Her name was Lydia Arlene Davidson Pilkington. And she was the sweetest woman. Um, I never heard her speak a cross word to anybody. Never. Uh, we called her Mama. We called my mother Mother, and her Mama. And I remember she worked at the children's home in Macon at one time in her life, and I remember I was about 12 years old, and I went up there and stayed with her for a week, and we'd go swimming every day. With that group, she had a group of girls that was about my age that she looked after, and I remember going swimming, and every time we got out of the pool, they would put alcohol drops in our ears, and I had never had that done before, and I thought, why are they doing that? And she told me it was to keep from getting an infection, in your ears. So I did it. It burned a little bit, but it was all right. But that was a good time, and she took me home on the bus. I don't remember how I got there, but she took me home on the bus, and we just loved her. She made gingerbread, hot gingerbread, and would make it in a cake pan, like one thin layer, and she would cut it in like pie slices, and we would eat it hot with buttermilk. Oh my gosh, that was so good. And people nowadays think, "You drink buttermilk?" I wouldn't drink buttermilk, but it's really, really good.
Dang. Was there ever anything that like Jerry and Linda made you do as like the youngest sibling?
Well, Linda, bless her heart, she was sweet. She let me. She didn't want me tagging along with her all the time, but she did let me go sometimes with her. And one time I got wind of them skipping school. There were 5 girls that were just real good friends, and they were going out to Crystal Lake. And so I asked Linda, "Can I go too?" And she said yes. I don't know if I begged her or not. I don't remember, but I went. And then one of the girls, her name was Peggy Couch. Her sister was in between me and my sister, and she didn't get to go. And so she told on them. Yes, and they all got called to the office, but nobody ever mentioned my name. I didn't get called. But yes, she would let me go. And when Ronnie, when they were engaged and all, she was still in high school, and he was in the National Guard, so he was gone off for about 6 months. And he left her his car. And so when they would go ride around, she'd let me go with them, and stuff like that.
Did y'all fight a lot, or were y'all friends from the start?
Most of the time we didn't fight. Now when we were younger we did, but as we got older, she matured more. We didn't fight as much. But I know one time when we were little, we had a knife, and I think we were cutting a watermelon. I can't remember exactly, Carson, but I can remember running through the house, and she was chasing me, and I went out the back door, and she started to slam the door, and I did my hand like this, and it went through the window, and I've still got a scar here, and several scars you can still see on my wrist.
The knife went through your hand?
No,
Oh.
she had the knife. My hand went through the window. I tried to stop the door. She was slamming shut to keep me outside, and my hand went through, but I've got a knot on my finger right there.
Oh, no. Did your brother ever play pranks on you and Linda?
I don't know that it would be a prank. Jerry kind of looked at me as his baby. He called me baby until I started school, and Mother had to make him quit. And I was just kind of always, he wouldn't do anything mean to me. But I remember at one time when we didn't have a television, they would hang a sheet over the door, and him and Linda especially would get in the room behind with the light on, and we could see their silhouette on the sheet. And they were always doing something, like he was always getting killed, and he would do these dramatic drops, and that would scare me. But as far as pranks, I don't remember Jerry ever doing a prank on me. But I do know that one time, huh?
That's funny with the
Yeah.
sheet.
Yeah, but we didn't have a TV. You have to make your own entertainment.
Yeah, how else did you make your own entertainment?
We played. Daddy used to sit on the floor and play jacks with us, and we would play and play and play those jacks. I played paper dolls. I rode my bicycle. Only ever got one bicycle, and I was 6 years old, and it was a 26 inch. And so it was up like this, and we've got these, Daddy had an 8mm movie camera, and I got this almost Snow White hair glimmering in the sun. And I had on a red sailor dress, because we didn't wear pants back then, we just wore dresses. But I could see that movie and me riding that bicycle and going like this, from side to, because it was too big for me. But it's the only one I ever got, and I knew it had to last. But I think your daddy got a bicycle just about every year, because he wore them out. But they wasn't made like they were made when I was coming up. But we got a lot of home movies, and Linda's got
Do you
most
have
of
them
them.
still?
Linda's got most of them.
Do you
Yeah.
think I could get them?
Yeah, she keeps saying she's going to have them put on DVDs, but just don't ever do it.
I don't know if you had any.
But
Also,
no.
any pictures or videos you can
I don't have any. I've got a lot of old pictures. If you want to see some old pictures of the family and all, Mother made each one of us an album out of pictures before she passed away, and gave the ones to me she thought I'd like to have, and the ones to made sure we all three got pictures of the old family. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to. Even if you took pictures of them and sent them to me.
I'll do that.
Maybe tag them
My let's see. One of my cousins, she's a distant cousin that I'm friends with on Facebook. She posted a picture. Now my grandmother was 13. There was 13 kids, and she was the oldest. And so this cousin posted a picture, and I think there's about 6 or 7 of them, and my grandmother's in there. She put it on Facebook. I just almost cried when I saw her picture, with standing there next to her little brother. His name was Alban, Uncle Alban. And anyways, it was his oldest daughter that posted the picture. That we're friends on Facebook, but we never see each other.
Yeah.
So,
Why did you call your mom mother? Is that what she wanted?
I'm assuming that's what it was. That's what Lynn and Jerry called her, so that's what I called her.
Who was the scarier parent, your mom or your dad?
Daddy. None of us were scared of my mother. I can remember Mother giving Jerry a spanking for something, and he was dancing around in a circle, and he was just laughing at her giving him a spanking, and Buddy, she started beating him harder and harder because she got mad, that he was laughing at her. And he but no, we wasn't afraid of my mother. She was I wasn't really afraid of my daddy, because I never got. I'm not saying that I didn't do anything bad, because that's not true at all. But I don't know if it was me being the youngest or what, but I don't remember getting a spanking. I saw Linda and Jerry get a spanking, and they didn't have problems out of me.
So, when you taught in Germany,
Okay.
you weren't married.
No, no, we were already divorced. We divorced. I moved out of the house, and
Yeah, what's that timeline, if you want?
that time. Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I moved out of the house. We had our 25th wedding anniversary on January the 4th of 1995. I moved out of the house March the 2nd, 1995.
So how long were y'all married?
25 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dang.
yeah, 25 years. But then I started a school. Miss Little Joanne Maynor wouldn't hear me doing anything else, so I started back there in Kings Bay, Georgia, at Georgia Military. Then the divorce was final in 1997, because he waited a year, and he asked me to go out to dinner, and I went, and we had ordered, and he says, well, if you're not coming back, I'm going to file for a divorce. And I said, well, you've not changed anything. So I'm not. He said he didn't have anything to change, so I just got up and left. I didn't eat. I just went home. I wasn't going to sit there. If he wanted to file for a divorce, he filed for a divorce. But 2 years after, let's see, the divorce was finished in July of 97, and I moved to Valdosta to go into speech and language pathology. My second semester, they found out I had the hearing loss myself, and I couldn't pass a phonetics class. because I couldn't distinguish sounds. Everything else was good. I did good in everything else, and I remember crying and saying, God, I could have taken early childhood over in Camden County, but God wanted me out of there. He wanted me away from everything so that He could work on me. And then He sent me to Germany, and I couldn't figure out, it was what I'd always wanted to do, was to be a missionary. But now I had a teaching degree, and here I'm headed to Germany. So that was 2000. I graduated. Took me 5 years to do 4 years because of the speech language. But also I decided while I was there I was going to take classes that I would like to take. So I took Russian because I'd been to Russia on a mission trip. So I took 2 semesters of Russian and some creative writing classes and things like that I really enjoyed that I didn't have to take. So I got to Germany in August of 2000 and stayed until July of 2002.
Okay.
That's
sounds
that
like a lot of
timeline.
fun.
Huh?
Like going over there, just being able to be free and do it.
Well, I thought I was going over there because I was going to be able to do something for God. But He used that time to really start healing my heart and really helping me work on forgiveness, because I, I, I couldn't forgive to start with. It took a while, and I had a very, very good friend of mine tell me that I needed to be obedient, and he would deal with the feelings, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah,
That's really good
yeah.
advice.
And so now we can be in the same room and talk, and we talk, so it's okay.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that you met in Germany that you are still friends with now, or like that you didn't
Oh
know before?
yeah, my friend Allison. She's a little Scottish lady. She worked on the military base called Rheindahl. She worked for the British government, civil service. Like I did.
Make it sound like a secret service.
But well, it's just working for the government. But she lived there in Dusseldorf, and she came to our church because it was an English-speaking church, and we got to be real good friends. And she and Bobby Joe and I were real close, and she was like in the middle of me and Bobby Joe, where I was 50 and Bobby Joe was like 23 or so. Allison was like in her mid-30s, and she and her husband had divorced at some point. I don't know when, but she came. She had to take a class in Washington, D.C., so I flew up to Washington and picked her up, and we drove down to Virginia. This is after Bobby Joe had come back from Germany, and she was over there for 5 years. So we picked Bobby Joe up and brought him down to Griffin. Yeah, that's when I lived in a little apartment, a little duplex apartment before I bought my house.
Yeah. So how did the yellow house come into
Well,
fruition? It used to be
Michael.
blue, right?
No, it was gray. It was gray trimmed in white and black, and that colors didn't suit me. But Michael was living with me. He's my grandson. He lived with me from the time I came back from Germany. He was in 2nd grade until he was in 5th grade, and he just got to where I couldn't do anything with him. But and then your daddy came to live with me, and we were in a 2-bedroom apartment. So I knew I had to find a house. I was already going to look for something, but I was just taking my time. I've been there 2 years, and I didn't know Spalding County all that well, still.
Why Griffin? Like, why did you?
Well, how did I come to Griffin? Well, I thought I was going back down around Valdosta because there was a job posted. There was a website at the time called Georgia Teach. And so I had looked on there for a job, and I found this job in Lake City. And down in South Georgia, there's a place called Lake Park that's right there close to to Valdosta. And I thought that's where I was going, was to Valdosta. And so I sent an email to my little group, and I said, hey, I got a job teaching 1st grade in Lake City, And I was all excited because I'd be going back, and I'd go to the same church and all that, have friends down there already. Well, I had some really good friends, the ones that told me to forgive, to be obedient about forgiveness, and God would deal with the feelings. They lived in Griffin. He preached at a church. And so his wife sent me a note and said, hey, just come stay with us until you find you a place. And I said, where do you live? And she said, Griffin. I thought, where on earth is Griffin? And anyway, so I had to get the map and find it, you know. And anyway, so I stayed with them for about 3 months because I worked about 45 minutes away over in Lake City, and I tried to find a place over there, but it was so crowded. You know, in every apartment complex I'd go into, there'd be men standing on the corners, you know, just like a group. I didn't want to live in a place like, you know, I needed to be safe. And somebody told me about the little place that's called 92 Place, right up here off of 92. And it's just a group of duplexes. It's where it's like a little small apartment and they're next to each other, you know. And so I found me one and got that, moved in there. And in October, I came in. School started, I guess, the end of August. And so I was there September and part of October before I moved in. And was there, lived there for 2 years. And then I went looking for a house. Me and David went looking.
Okay. What is your, like, do you like living alone, like having your own house? Like, I imagine
Well,
you do, but you do a bunch
yeah,
of stuff.
I do because I'm used to it. It'll be next year. Will be 30 years since I've been on my own. 30 years. So, I always said if God wanted me to have somebody, He would send them to me. I've never gone out and looked, so He's never sent anybody, and I'm very, very content. I have a lot of friends that I do stuff with, you know, and I'm very involved at my church. So I stay busy. I love working. I like my life, you know. It's turned out God's really blessed me in my later years, you know. And if I don't work next year, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like, you know, not getting up and going to work. But we'll see. You know, God will take care of it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Okay.